Hello, hello, it's Pluisjen again with the third and final Vassal World Cup pods game. In this one, my Peltas and Arcs will be facing off against B2W in his Ackbar Home 1 list. This game will decide whether I make it out of the pods, but with 15 points already in the pocket, I'm in a pretty good position. So let's see what happens. So, looking at the post-deploy situation, you can see my fleet in the bottom, near all the obstacles, and the enemy fleet clumped up at the top, with the home one looking to be moving alongside the top edge of the board. But before we go over what that means, or my plans for this game, let's first go over the objective and the fleets. I had the bid, chose to be second again, and this time we'll be playing Precision Strike. I'll also give a quick recap of my fleet. My flagship down here is a Pelta class medical frigate. It's got Admiral Yularen aboard, along with Clone Navigation Officer, Fighter Coordination Team and boosted comms. I have a second medical frigate, also with Clone Navigation Officer and Fighter Coordination Team, this one carrying Bomber Command Center. A third Pelta medical frigate, also with Clone Navigation Officer and Fighter Coordination Team and parts resupply. And finally a Pelta class transport frigate carrying Hondo Onaka, Fighter Coordination Team and cluster bombs. I have also deployed my squadron wing in front of my Peltas. It has Ahsoka Tano, Anakin Skywalker into Delta 7 Aether Sprite, a V-19 Torrent and 5 ARC-170 Starfighter squadrons. And then let's move on to the opponent's list. About half of his fleet is made up out of this big MC-80 assault cruiser. It is carrying Admiral Ackbar, Walex Blissex, engine techs, electronic countermeasures, reactive gunnery, point defense ion cannons, quad battery turrets and the Home 1 title. He also has two supporting ships, the basic rebel skirmishers, a CR-90 Corvette A with turbolaser reroutes and Janus Light, and another CR-90 Corvette A with just turbolaser reroute circuits. For further support, he also has two GR-75 transports. One has slicer tools in Quantum Storm, and the other has Ahsoka Tano in Comsnet. And then, finishing it all off, he has a small fighter screen, two generic A-Wings, Tycho and Shara. As for my basic plan, the goal is to go after the Home 1. It's worth almost 200 points and is also the least maneuverable ship he has. The smaller ships are much harder for me to catch and actually destroy, although if any of the CR-90s come too close, it should be very easy to farm a lot of points off of them with the arcs. But I don't expect my opponent to come close enough to give me the opportunity to do so. The squadron screen doesn't really scare me. I should have enough firepower with Anakin and Ahsoka to wipe it out. I just need to be careful not to have my arcs locked down in a key moment because they come flying in from very far away. And an advantage to my highly redundant fleet is that the slicer tools don't worry me at all. I can mostly just ignore the little flotilla because even if it comes in, it's not really going to accomplish anything. So the plan is mostly just to head off the Home 1, see if we can get enough shots in it to destroy it, and mostly ignore everything else other than try and clean the squad screen when it's not blocking the arcs. And with that, let's head on to the end of round 1. So at the end of round 1, you can see the Home 1 is slowly moving forward, as well as most of the other ships, but the non-Janus Light CR-90 is actually broken off from the fleet and is trying to make a pass on the left side of my fleet. This was a bit of a surprise to me, but I don't particularly mind because a single CR-90 is not really capable of destroying a Pelta that's willing to repair itself. Other than that, nothing really exciting happens here, and if we move on to the end of round 2, you can see that the Home 1 is starting to make its turn into my fleet, and my squadrons are all rotating to meet it. I'm hoping to have the engagement essentially halfway across the board or slightly below it, with all of my arcs getting to hit it in the same turn. You can see the CR-90 on the left closing in. It's currently at long range of my flagship. So at the start of round 3, the action immediately begins. The CR-90 was in range of my flagship and immediately opens fire, getting a pretty good roll. But since we're a Pelta, we just evade, brace, redirect the damage, taking only 2 on shields. As I mentioned, a single CR-90 can't really kill off a Pelta. We have too many shields and defense tokens. I could easily take 3 more of these shots and take no point of hull damage. And if you add in repair dials, you might even be able to survive the battle completely unscathed. The CR90 on the other hand is gonna take chip damage from this and will eventually have to back off. And you can see as the CR90 comes in that the flagship activates next, and even on this pretty mediocre shot I still chip away one of its shields, which it has no real way of restoring. So add to this the chip shots coming in from the other Peltas, and it's gonna have to disengage pretty quickly. So after my flagship moves up, he activates Jaina's Light, and she moves to the other side of the home one. This was a bit of a surprise, as this pretty much leaves her out of the fight. If we go on to the next move, then Quantum Storm activates, and it also moves to the other end of the home one. So at this point I'm kinda wondering what my opponent is going to do, as the only path the home one now has is flying straight into all of my arcs. So I decide to save the cluster bomb ship for last. It's most to the right and most easily able to activate all the arcs. After I move up the repair ship, the home one activates and then immediately starts flakking, getting 2 hits on the first arc that got a little too close, and then another 2 hits on the other one. So my opponent is off to a good start as far as the dice go. He then moves the home one up closer to my arcs, and I think, well, this is great, he's gonna end up in attack range. But if we zoom in very closely, you can see he very accurately manages to put it just outside of the hit range of my ships, so I cannot actually hit it without activating or otherwise moving these squadrons closer. So with only the cluster bomb ship left to go, I do send it in, and I send along the 2 arcs it can command, and we start stripping some shields off the home one. It takes most of the damage on the side closest to me, and then activates its last flotilla to start moving up its A-wings. 2 of the A-wings come in closer, and then in the squad phase the other 2 also come in to screen the home one. In response during the squad phase I also move up all of my squadrons into an attack position. I move Anakin to engage with one of the A-wings, and then move up Ahsoka so that Anakin gets a shot and already reduces it to 1 hull point. I also move the remaining arcs closer to the bottom where they can catch the home one as it comes in closer to my fleet. So after the shot I decide to activate the flag. I'm going to try and move it in behind the other 2 Peltas at speed 2, but first it needs to command some squadrons. It activates one of the arcs to hit the home one, and then it activates Ahsoka, and Ahsoka moves up. Now the plan here is for Anakin to kill off the 1 health guy with the free shot he gets from Ahsoka, but unfortunately he whiffs, and even on his Adept 2 reroll he whiffs again, leaving him unable to finish off a 1 hull generic A-wing. Fortunately Ahsoka herself does better, but she attacks Tycho, getting 3 hits and an accuracy, drops Tycho to 2 hull. But that still leaves Anakin trapped with the 1 hull A-wing, and I'm definitely not gonna waste his activation killing that. So I decide to just let the other squad commands go to waste and try to move up the Pelta. Unfortunately there isn't any room to go speed 2, so it just has to crawl up at speed 1. So after the Pelta takes a few more shots into the CR90 and moves up speed 1, Quantum Storm activates and it sends Shara and the other A-wing in. Both of them do really well, and they just straight up roll 6 hits and kill off the Torrent, which is doing its job being an escort. So with Anakin now being engaged by the entire enemy squadron wing, I decide this is a good moment to activate him. So on the next activation it's his time to go. He gets 3 hits and manages to kill off the 4 hull A-wing that just hopped in with his splash. I debate killing off the other A-wing as well, but decide that since Tycho has scatter he's harder to kill, so I put the splash into him instead. I then activate one of the arcs and use it to kill off the other A-wing before taking a shot into the home one, and then a backward shot into the CR90 going below me. I roll an excellent accuracy plus double, which forces it to burn off one of its evades, as its front shield has already been dropped by the flagship. So as I mentioned at the start, I'm not really worried about it. It's gonna have to break off at this point, because the next time it gets shot at, it's gonna have to start taking cards and face up some worth points with Precision Strike. So after this one, the home one activates and it fires into the cluster bomb ship at the bottom. He rolls pretty well, getting 2 accuracies, leaving me only with the option to evade. So I opt to burn the evade to try and get rid of the crits at least, which ends up working out. I end up taking 2 face down damage cards. And after this fairly damaging shot, he moves up and he actually hits up the engine techs and moves in at quite high speed. I assume he's trying to make a broadside pass at my ships, given that his broadsides are quite superior to mine. The cluster bomb ship itself then immediately activates, it reveals a repair and quickly fixes off the 2 face-down damage cards before anyone has a chance to start flipping them. It then takes some quick and nice little revenge into the home 1. This, along with the arcs, causes it to burn off its brace token, although he has Waylex and we'll get it back later, and leaves the home 1 pretty bruised and battered at the end of round 4. So at this point, 4 rounds down, there is very little actual kills scored. I took out 2 generic A-Wings, I have thus far lost only the generic Torrent, although the cluster bomb ship is pretty severely damaged. It's probably not going to survive. I am starting to worry if I can actually kill the home 1, since it's taken 0 cards so far and one of my ships is pretty much out of position. And that my chances of winning don't exactly go up when the home 1 activates first and just straight up murders the cluster bomb ship. Although once again he rolled not a single crit, which means that it takes out the ship immediately but scores no victory tokens. So at this point it seems important to step up the pace and try and take out home 1 as quickly as possible. I activate the flagship and it activates Anakin, who makes up a bit for his earlier poor performance by doing 2 damage into Shara and killing off Tycho. It also activates one of the arcs and attacks the home 1, stripping off a few more shields before moving to this position, where it is just barely in blue range of the home 1, although the ship isn't very badly damaged, so it should be fine. Fortunately, the flagship's new position leaves it just obstructed from the non-titled CR-90, which has no shots and can merely move up. That means the flagship will only have to deal with 1 more round of attacks from enemy vessels, so having 5 hull and all its tokens shouldn't be a big problem. After this, the bomber command center at the top activates and Ahsoka finishes off Shara, leaving all of the arcs free to go do what they were supposed to be doing, which is bombing the home 1. So after one of the flotillas moves up, next up the parts resupply ship activates and it starts sending arcs into the home 1. 2 of them move up and start hammering the shields, and then one of them hits the rear, which has no shields, and my opponent opts to just take 1 face down damage card instead of burning out one of his redirects. And this is going to be very important very soon, because after this first damage card into the home 1, his Jaina's Light activates, scores a pretty good hit into the parts resupply ship, and then moves up. And at that point the squadron phase begins and I have 2 arcs left. At this point I realize that with the way the Peltas are currently positioned and with only the arcs really available to do damage, I'm not actually going to kill the home 1, so I opt to make the first one just flip the card instead. I'm hoping to farm some tokens here and come out with a small win based on the victory points. However, when the arc first flips the card, we realize that it is actually a comms noise card, and since I have 1 more arc available, I figure I can flip this card again and put him at speed 0, which is at least going to be a little inconvenient for him while he gets a token to speed back up again. I might get some more cards and some more tokens out of this. And so that is exactly what happens. The last remaining arc also flips the comms noise and the home 1 drops to speed 0. And so this is where round 5 ends. The home 1 still has 7 hull remaining and most of my Peltas are out of position, but it's currently speed 0, so I'm figuring I get at least 1 more chance to put some crits into it before it speeds up and goes away. That is until turn 6 starts and my opponent opens the overlay and we realize he isn't in range. He's not going to be able to get a nav token, and that means his home 1 is going to be stuck at speed 0 for the entire round. So at the end of the round, I figure, well, in round 6, I'm gonna get at least 1 activation where the home 1 is speed 0. I'm gonna get 1 or 2 more card flips in and score some additional points. But it's not until we start round 6 and my opponent brings up the distance overlay that we realize he is not in range of CommsNet. He doesn't have any way to get a nav token, and that also means he doesn't have any way to speed back up to speed 1. So at this point, I figure I'm gonna win this one. I'm gonna destroy the home 1, score 200 points plus whatever token flips I get. He's not gonna be able to speed up. And so he immediately activates the home one, reveals the repair and patches up some of his shields, and then he declares a shot on my flagship. And as I mentioned, I have full hull, I have a shield, I have all my tokens, he has no dice control, so I'm pretty much, there's no way he can destroy this. He'd need to roll like 3 accuracies and 6 damage on 9 dice. And of course he rolls and gets exactly that. And so that immediately takes what was looking to be an easy victory back into very stressful territory, because without this ship I am very low on actual squadron activations and I still need to actually kill the home one. So I decide to go with the top ship first. The only thing it can reach is Anakin Skywalker, so Anakin Skywalker flies up to the home one and once again manages to whiff, not even scoring a single hit. After that, Jaina's Light activates and fires into the repaired Pelta, getting another really good roll, being the only shot actually helped by home one during the entire game. But we're still Peltas, we still just brace, redirect and take damage on shields, and no more cards are dealt. And after this, the repair ship itself activates. It has a squad dial-in token, so it can command 4 arcs, but it's also my last activation, and the home one only has its rear exposed. So it starts by taking the 2 arcs closest and having them fire into the home one. I actually managed to score not a single crit, which means this only deals 4 regular points of damage, but that still brings the home one down to 3. And then after taking these shots, the arcs clear out to make room for the other ones, as I'm hoping to be able to fighter coordinate them into range. I then get to activate 1 more arc and hop him just in range of the rear, once again scoring 2 regular hits, so still no victory tokens, but at least home one is down to a single hull point. The repair ship then takes its own shot, taking 1 more shield off of the side, as it unfortunately just barely doesn't have a shot on the rear. It then moves and turns in, and I have 1 of the arcs in range of the fighter coordination team, and I'm able to move it up to where it can reach the rear of the ship. And then after this, my opponent activates the other CR-90 and tries to move it so close to the rear of the home one that it can obstruct the shots, but unfortunately he gets just not close enough. And so with that, we reach the squadron phase with 2 more arcs able to hit the home one, and it being on 1 hull. It basically all comes down to the dice, and so far the arcs dice haven't been great, and the point defense ion cannons on the home one have been blocking a lot of damage. So the one on the left goes first, hitting it on the side hull, manages to score a crit, but also an accuracy, so it only strips away the shield, and that brings it down to the final arc, which with some luck manages to get 1 hit and another accuracy, but the 1 damage is just enough to end up killing the home one. And so once again it comes down to the very last shot in the very last round, but the end game ends up being like this: the enemy home one destroyed along with his squadron screen, me having lost my flagship, the cluster bomb ship and the torrent. So in the end, Precision Strike only managed to net me 2 victory tokens, but the 2 of them combined are pretty much worth about 230 points, since they're the only reason I actually managed to kill the home one. So that puts the final score for this game on a 7-4 with a 126 margin of victory. That also brings my total up to 22 tournament points, which means I'm guaranteed to go on to the Swiss, and there will be more videos of me recapping my games there. Looking back on this one, I underestimated how tough the home one was going to be. I really should have gone forward faster, confronted it harder and put more damage into it. My dice didn't really help, but the point defense ion cannons really kept that thing alive far longer than I thought it would. I figured in 3 rounds it'd be easy to kill it, but in the end it came down to the luck of the comms noise to actually score the kill there. But those are very much the risks of picking Precision Strike. A single card flip can really ruin your game if you have one big expensive ship, and in the end it's as much the random luck as my opponent deciding not to discard a token in order to take the damage on the shields. So I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. I'm really happy to be through to the Swiss for the World Cup, and that'll conclude this video. If anyone has any questions or comments, please let me know, and otherwise I'll see you for the next one.